tell us where you're from. So if you see the chat area on the bottom, just type in where you are broadcasting today. Where are you in the world? Where are you in the world? Yes.
So we know there we go. Detroit,
There we go.
Pittsburgh, Minnesota. Is it still like 40 below up there?
Oh, wow.
Like Ohio. Hima's from Atlanta. Loveland, Colorado. Beautiful area. Waterford, Michigan. Rhode Island. Northern Jersey. Switzerland.
I want to interrupt and say David and I are from the southeast of the USA. So we're in the period of time where we have the season of the day. So we never know, is it winter, spring, summer, or fall? So we're in that season.
Jen, you're going to love, so for those of you that may recognize this comment, so Jen, it's pollen season. So you guys, you go outside and there's like about an inch film of this yellow dust on everything.
Yeah.
Oh my Lord.
It's not snow. It's pollen.
Gregory knows what I'm talking about. I'm sucking down Alavert, like allergy medicine, like it's candy, because that's the only way you'll breathe. That's the only way you get through the day.
Yeah. So anyway, we're going to continue to have people on here, and that's fine. But to be mindful of your time, of the ones who were here early. We love for you to join us early because it just gives us time to pick on people and chat with you. So,
and if you could kindly mute yourself, that would be great. If you haven't already, if you could mute yourself. Well, we might ask you to unmute, but if you could mute yourself, that way we don't hear the background music, that'd be awesome.
Okay, one more thing I would like to do. So because we want this to be interactive. So at times, my name is Jennifer Bridges. And if you don't know me, if you're new to us, I'm founder of PDUs2Go.com. I'm so excited to have David Nour here, a longtime partner. We have Lee Lambert and so many other people from our global community. So if you're new to us, what we want to do today is David is going to be talking about curve benders and things very specific of his book and his work that will facilitate the acceleration of careers for project management professionals. But we like to be interactive. You know, we find it boring. We bore ourselves if we're just sitting here talking. We not only bore you, but we bore ourselves. So, use the chat area. If you see here, there are reactions. So if you see my little frame, I can give a heart of something. So use those, and you can do a little thing to raise your hand or put questions over here, because during this session, we'll be answering your questions as well. And we want you to open up your mic. So feel free, don't be shy, open up your video. David will call on you, and we want to take these concepts. I mean, this is from David's work of like 2 decades. So his 11th book. And it's the principle, the reason we're doing this is for most of you, some of you are here for your PDU, but we do this because it's applicable to the work that we're doing to advance and accelerate what we're doing. So we want you to apply the principles, and share, collaborate. You brilliant people here. I mean, we were talking before this started about people who are working on the lunar lander, subsea engineering projects. So you guys are amazing. So ask questions. So with that, we're going to start. Again, my name is Jennifer Bridges, founder of PDUs2Go.com. I want to welcome you. And David Nour, longtime partner. He's been our partner for 14 years of PDUs2Go. And he's created, like, I know Lee's on here as well. Lee and some other of our contributing partners have been so kind to create programs for our community. And with that, so part of this is the formal book launch of curve benders that David will be talking with us about today. So it's a launching of that. And from there, I'm going to hand it over to David. And
so thank you, Jennifer. Good to be back with this group. It is, I got to tell you, Jennifer's done an amazing job as long as I've known her to build this community of project management professionals. And I got to tell you, I'm in awe of project managers I've met, I've gotten to know, because of the impact you create on a daily basis, that I got to tell you, a lot of the organization may or may not have visibility to. And as I wrote this book, as Jennifer and I've talked about it, as I presented a couple other places, I kept coming back to this idea. I work with a lot of senior executives and boards. And I got to tell you, the most astute leaders know that the connective tissue in their organization, what makes their place run, are project management professionals like you. The challenge is they're a minority. And there are others who see what you do is important, but they don't understand what you do. They don't understand how you do it. And the more I talk to Jennifer, the more I talk to others, I said, there's gotta be a way where we can share ideas with this group of professionals to raise the awareness for their work, their awareness for the impact they create, and as such, the awareness with the peers and other functional leaders and up through the organizations. We had Antonio Nieto Rodriguez, who's the former chairman of PMI globally, and his book is called Project Revolution, and he talks a lot about projects gaining more visibility. I interviewed an executive, a 40-year executive search leader, who said people should start thinking of their careers as projects, because 6 months into a job, the person that hired you, much less the executive of the company, might be gone. So you got to lead much more proactively your career. You've got to become CEO of your own development and career. Okay, if I could ask everybody, if you could kindly, if you haven't, mute yourself, that'd be great. So you got to become really the CEO of your own career. And that's really the intent of this session. So let me go ahead and start sharing my screen. And Jen, you're my eyes and ears. I want to make sure you can you see my screen okay? Beautiful. All right. So as Jennifer mentioned, this session is focused on curve benders, the launch of this book and this idea. And we're very specific. I'm going to talk about your career accelerants. And this is going to be a series. We're going to talk more about it. If you're active on social, like Jen and I are, you can use @DavidNour, @PDUs2Go. And also we've been using the hashtag PMNext, really talking about the evolution of project management. And of course, the Curve Benders book, just as a couple of ways to kind of keep those as buckets. She's the brain of the operation. Let's just all admit. I'm just eye candy. I just show up just to kind of look good. And joking aside, she's been a dear friend for almost 15 years. And I've really enjoyed our partnership and our work together around PDUs2Go. We also have a very special guest today. I don't know if you recognize this man or not, but it's his fault that I'm losing hair at an accelerated pace, right? I didn't know anything about PMPs or PDUs or any of that stuff before I met Jennifer Bridges. The woman has made me go through PMP prep, y'all. I've endured PMP prep. Holy cow. But Lee Lambert, again, I think that the founder of PMP and the man has done more for this industry. And Lee, we're grateful to have you. And as Jennifer mentioned, one of the contributors to this PM Next series. Talking about PM Next, if you haven't checked it out, again, PDUs2Go, Jen and I put our heads together at the onset of this pandemic, and we talked a lot about what do project management professionals need to think about, what skills do they need, what behavior changes they need to remain relevant, both during, because none of us knew last March how long this thing was going to last, as well as on the other side of this pandemic. So we got together some really interesting people. We created 60 hours of just really interesting, both people within the project management community, and Jen just shared the link in the chat, by the way, but also people outside of it. I'm always a big believer of, if this is your lens, if you can see my camera, if this is your view, you're going to have a myopic view of what's happening. If you already hang out with project management professionals day in and day out, how are you learning anything else from outside of that purview, outside of that lens? So we went and got Charlie Pepperelli, who's a angel investor and a startup guy. And we got Peter Bregman, who talks about emotional courage. We got, a retired Army colonel to talk about how he does what he does throughout the military, Vincent Bug. So, a lot of great folks that joined us, again, from both within the project management community. Again, Lee Lambert contributed, Clint Paget, Laura Barnard, Aaron Thorpe, a lot of these folks, great content into the series, but also we wanted to make sure we went outside of that. And we didn't want to just introduce the content and say, here's your PDUs, PDUs, thanks for coming. We also created a forum. We created a community. We created conversations. Many of you already belong to here. If not, cannot encourage you enough to come join us. By the way, for the record, I am kicking Jennifer's booty in terms of invites. You know who seat number one
No
is?
way.
Right? There's a very, 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 distant number two. This is a competition. By the way, Maria, who's
You guys
also
have to help me out here. Help me.
That's a distant number two. It's this March Madness basketball time in the States. You can't catch up. So Maria's also, she's lovely. She's Uruguay background. She's joining us from Berlin. Very cool lady. She's awesome when she comes to these things. And she was our member of the month last month. And we just love having her. So it's a great community that if you don't belong already, we really, really hope you'll come join us. Again, Jen just shared a link in the chat. So click on that. Come join us in the community. It's a great place. So very quickly about my background. As I mentioned, pre-pandemic, I would go around the world, speak at events. I would moderate panels and customers, conversations. By the way, that gentleman you're looking at in the middle, General retired, Brigadier General Tom Bostic, ran the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, $318 billion annual budget, right? That's what this guy, and he said, I had a one-on-one, he also rides a Harley, and we hit it off, around motorcycles. And he said, my life is projects. We run these massive projects. And they did, if you remember, Hurricane Katrina, Army Corps of Engineers rebuild the shorelines in New Orleans. And really, they do amazing work around the globe. So those are the kinds of people I would hang out with pre-pandemic. Post-pandemic, like you, I'm stuck. I'm stuck at home, and that's my setup with the camera and the lights. And my kids give me a hard time. They're like, Dad, can you launch a SpaceX satellite, shuttle from that setup? I think digital, we're increasingly going to have to become a lot more digital. And this is a part of what we're going to talk about. This is an example of a strategy visualization work. We've done this with several of Jennifer's, project management clients. It basically takes those unnecessary, overcomplicated project stories and really distills them into one page. I have a very talented creative director, a guy named Lynn Wilson, and we take 40, 50, 100-page PowerPoints, and we turn it, this is not clip art, these are custom illustrations, into one page. Other part of my work is I go into companies or into associations, and we create this innovation sprint where we take a group of people through 12 to 16 weeks of learning and growth. This is my Star Wars trilogy, right? So Relationship Economics years ago is when I met Jennifer, most recently Co-Create. And then coming up later this month, we're launching Curve Benders. Curve Benders will be book number 11. The common thread of those and my life's work for the last 20 years has been all around business relationships. How do we become more intentional? How do we become more strategic about the relationships we choose to invest in? So I started this a couple of years ago. I've had over 100 guests on my podcast. We got several thousand listeners. I don't know if you know this, but I'm in a gang. That's my gang right there. My daughter is about to finish her first year at Georgia Tech. And my son, I'm 5'10". My son is 6'2". This man child is working out twice a day, big lacrosse players, and we got a couple of crazy, crazy dogs. And by the way, that's what I do for fun. No, I did not Photoshop my name on that picture. That is what I do for fun. And I don't know where your happy place is, but I don't know anybody that can burn the candle at both ends. So when I put my earplugs in and my helmet on, nobody's texting me. Nobody's calling. Nobody wants to have a Zoom meeting. Mauro just came back from working out. You've got to find ways to disengage. You've got to find ways to just kind of get away from, we all need digital detox, right? By the way, mathematically proven, you have a dramatically better chance if you get away from a problem, come back to it with a fresh lens. We're going to talk a lot about that in the series. So, as Jennifer mentioned, we're launching this Curve Benders book. This is a series. In April, we're going to do a series of free introductory sessions. You get 1 PDUs each. So today we're going to talk about this idea of career accelerants. Next Tuesday, I'm hoping same time, same place. You'll mark your calendar to join us. We're going to talk about your personal market value. I'm going to give you a glimpse into it today, but we're going to really go deep into what's your value today in the market, where do you want it to go to, and what specific things you should be working on. On Tuesday, April 13th, we're going to talk about your personal reinvention. Again, I'm going to show you this idea of an S-curve today. If you don't reinvent yourself, you're not going to remain relevant. At the risk of Jennifer getting mad at me, way too many people I've met within the project management function are doing the exact same thing they were doing 10 years ago, 20 years ago. You cannot remain relevant if you don't reinvent yourself. And we're going to talk a lot about that. The book launches on April 27th. It's a Tuesday. We're asking for your help. If you can pre-order it, and Jennifer's got a link we'll put in the chat. We've created a very specific page just for you. You pre-order the book. That will launch a series of what we call learning sprints. These learning sprints are deeper and they're more intentional, similarly, around your personal market value, around this idea of growth grid, right? How do you solve complex problems? And then if curve benders are relationships, what are the steps? How do you get to them? And we're going to make these available as a course on Nour Forum and PDUs2Go as part of the PM Next series. So great events in April, book launch end of this month, great events, learning sprints coming up in May. All of this is intended to push you to think, to elevate your perception of yourself, elevate not just your output. Most project management professionals I meet are very focused on their output. That is admirable. Most executives I work with care about your outcomes. Don't confuse your output with the outcomes you create. And you might have to learn to speak a different language to really talk about outcomes much more than output. So, as Jennifer mentioned, we want to make this interactive. We want to make this engaging. So if we could, let's take out your smartphone. It's a lot more fun if you play along. Take out your smartphone and let's go to Menti, M-E-N-T-I, menti.com. And you can see the code top of the page, menti.com. Go ahead and type in that code. This is a lot more fun, I promise you. All you have to do is just open up a browser on your phone and enter your code, 8379516. So just type that in, and it's asking you where you're joining us from. Just type in the city. So I'm in Atlanta. There you go. There's Detroit. There's Atlanta. Here we go. People, Tennessee. That's not a city. Maryland. Come on, people. Huntington Beach. All right. Detroit. Meritus, Ohio. That's also not a city. Boston is. Jacksonville is. Sacramento, California. Welcome. Helena. Nice city. Manassas. Beautiful. Waterford. That's so cool. I love it. Let's see, Mexico City, very nice. I might be coming there this summer. Athens, Vancouver, beautiful. Love Vancouver. Loveland, yes, there we go. Beautiful. Calgary, another one. Belo Horizonte, Brazil. Oh, that's nice. Jen, we gotta go. Brazil is beautiful. We have to go. We got to take PDUs2Go on the road.
That's right. PDUs2Go on the road.
Lancaster, Hamilton, beautiful. Want to make sure your vote gets counted. So jump in with us, and we're going to use this throughout the session. San Antonio's in the house. Garden Grove. I don't know where that is, but it sounds very exotic. Powell, Ohio. Very cool. Let's see. Athens, Greece. Chicago. We're definitely going to Chicago. August and September. Dearborn. Nice. Maywood, New Jersey. Clinton, New Jersey. There we go. Very cool. All right. So we're going to keep going. We're going to keep going. Here we go. Next question. Next question, your role. Are you a student? Are you a frontline kind of project contributor? Do you manage a project team? Do you lead a function, or are you part of the executive leadership? Are you a student? This is dot voting, right? Are you a frontline? Are you actually a project contributor? You're actually working on a project. Do you manage a project team? Are you do you lead a function? Or you're part of executive leadership? Right? So let's get a sense for your role, your impact. Tina, if you could use, thanks for jumping in the chat. If you could use menti.com, it's on your screen, menti.com, and the code is at top of the page. This is a interactive polling tool that we'll use throughout the session. By the way, I researched like 12 different ones. And what I liked about this one was, you don't have to download anything, and you don't need a PhD to kind of get through it. So it was really easy and pretty straightforward. I've been using it since December of 18, right? So very cool. People are jumping in. That's awesome. Looks like a lot of project management teams. We got leader function, executive leadership. Very cool. All right. So third question. Here we go. I'm a big believer of understanding what makes you successful and what holds you back. So type in, what one factor do you believe most contributed to your 2020 success? More active roles. Nice. What one thing did you do?
Yes, yeah. But for that, a couple of things need.
What one thing did you do? Focus. Love it. Education. Great. Creativity. Look at this. Relentless focus. More time to focus. Right? Most of us didn't do the whole commute thing, right? Or the water cooler. Oh, Lord. More autonomy. Good. Managing remote teams. Determination. Friends. Hallelujah. I'm a hugger. If we were together, I would hug you, because friends. Yes. Resilience. Targeted team collaboration. Beautiful. Personal networking. A new attitude toward professional challenges. Yes. These are all great. What I want you to think about is this, and that's awesome. Jump in, keep jumping in. I want you, there's somebody said it. Adaptability. Adaptability. Because if I told you last January or February that a global pandemic would disrupt not just the way we work, but it would disrupt our lives, disrupt the way we play, that we couldn't go out and we couldn't do a lot of things that we had taken for granted, you would think I'm crazy. But you know what? It's exactly what happened, and we all adapted. So one of the biggest enablers of your career accelerant as a project management professional is going to be your ability to adapt. Your ability to adapt. To adapt, you need foresight. You need to look ahead. You need to be able to see ahead and identify what I call faint signals. By the way, I'm a content presenter. I'm going to share a lot of content with you. We'll share the recording, but you also may want to take some notes, because I'm going to talk a lot about ideas that you may have heard of, but I'm going to really reinforce them. So adaptability is one of those attributes. You need a line of sight. You need predictability, right? Line of sight. And ideally, you want to look for faint signals. Faint signals are all around us. You need to get better at identifying which ones are legitimate, which ones are real, which ones are going to impact me, which ones are not. But a big driver of your success is going to be some of these attributes. All right. So we're going to go back to our presentation. And what I've learned in working with these types of global clients is, and somebody's gotten creative already with annotation. So let me clear all drawings. There we go. Okay. So in working with these global clients, what I've figured out is there's a core business and there's a typical org structure. And yet we keep running into some very similar challenges, right? Confusing direction and vision, culture that inhibits innovation, resistance to change, misalignment of initiatives. Audiences can't understand where we're going, what we're doing, unclear as to our why. So one of the first things we do with a lot of teams, as I mentioned, Jen and I have done this with several clients, is this idea of strategy visualization. How do we take, and this is something I want you to think about. How do we take something within your team, within your organization, within your project management function that is unnecessarily overcomplicated? We tend to overcomplicate things. Stop it. That is part of the Nour tough love because it is not helping you. Most audiences don't need to know all that you know. They don't want to know all that you know. I want to know what, especially management, leadership, executives, I want to know, what do I need to know to make a decision? What do I need to know to buy in on your idea? I need to buy in on you. You want to accelerate your career? Say more with less. Start using $100 words, not $10 words. There's enormous value in brevity. There's enormous amount of value in succinctness. Get to the point. By the way, anytime you can do that visually, we've got neuroimaging data that our brains process visuals 60,000 times faster than we do text. By the way, the same neuroimaging data definitively points to the fact that our attention span as human beings is shorter than that of a goldfish. Yeah, about 7 to 8 seconds. So if you don't grab my attention with whatever project you're working on in 7 to 10 seconds, I'm going to disengage. I'm already thinking, what's for lunch? I'm already thinking, when is our cafeteria and our company going to be open? Because I love those bacon ramp shrimp that they would serve, right? You got to grab me by the proverbial collar, and you got to help me understand why your project, why what you're working on is profoundly impactful in our business. How will it create enterprise value? You remember I told you you're going to have to learn a different language? Instead of PMP prep and MBOK and all the other things I've heard from Jennifer.
The portal.
Instead of all those great things I've heard from Jennifer, I'm not taking anything away from your profession. That's not it. I'm trying to tell you, most executives don't speak project management. Executives speak business outcomes, results, key metrics. Right now, their biggest concern is how do we get demand back in the post-pandemic era? How do we bring the workforce back in? How do we remove friction from our customers, from our partners, from our employees? How do we keep people from burning out? So regardless of what your project is about, you want to engage leaders, you want to create impact, you've got to speak their language. You've got to start to put the outcomes you create into the executive's language. As Jennifer mentioned, if you have a question, we'll absolutely pause. Please, please, please use the let's use the Jen, I'm struggling for what you raise your hand.
Yeah.
Right? Raise your hand.
Reaction.
Yeah, reaction. That's what I was looking for. Use the reactions. Raise your hand and I'll pause. I promise I'll stop talking. There's Jennifer's right there. You go. She raised her hand. So use reactions. I'll stop talking and we'll definitely call on you. So Sanjay wants to say something. Go ahead and unmute yourself. Sanjay, if you could go ahead and you have a question.
Oh, sorry, David. I didn't understand that.
Would you please stop causing problems?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
There's one, Jen, there's one in every group, right?
I know.
There is a problem may causer in every group. Glad you're here, Sanjay. No problem.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to lower his hand. Let me lower Jennifer's.
This is a great time to stop and just, ask questions.
Absolutely. And again, we'll pause, questions, comments. I want to make sure that this content is relevant to you and you're getting the most out of it, right? So we talked about creating these strategy visualizations. The reason you should care is if you start to communicate visually, it starts to cascade through the organization. So it's really cool when a project we work on becomes the way the company introduces new employees. And there's a letter from the boss and something we help them build tells you, here's where we're going as a company. And here's what we're doing. Here's where we create alignment. By the way, this is our vision and our path forward. And that was a project. It was a project that multiple people worked on. Jen, you have a comment?
I do. So this is a great example with design thinking. Now, how many people, like, raise your hand if you are using design thinking or some kind of visualizations, visual aids on your projects?
There's Dr. G, Tim
Okay.
Stokes, Sanjoy. Well, was that a mistake or did it mean to do that?
No, this was intentional, David.
This was
so-
intentional. Okay,
yes.
good. Just checking. Just checking. Colleen is
So
there. Nice.
Colleen is using them. Awesome. Very good.
Cynthia, very cool. There we go. Okay. So the rest of you, I'd love to hear in the chat, why not? Why don't you use more visuals in conveying not the what, but the so what of your projects, right? The outcome of your projects. Jump in the chat and just share, why aren't you using more of visual communication, visual storytelling in the way you talk about the impact of your projects, right? So not creative enough. Lisa, that's very valid. Good. And here's the mind blowing. You ready? Yeah, you don't have to be. You don't have to be. All of us can draw stick figures. One of the things we're going to do within the Nour Forum communities, I'm going to bring my creative director, Lynn Wilson. Jennifer has seen this. He's going to teach all of us how to draw because every one of us knows how to draw. Time constraints. Yep, Mark, you're exactly right. I wonder how much time you're spending explaining a project where a picture would streamline that, right?
Yeah.
Technical deficiency. That's valid. Management wants numbers. Yeah, I would submit they want numbers as proof, but in terms of telling the overarching story, the visual could really help you do that, right? Maria, need to learn about it. I think we all do. Yeah, Lynn, Maria, you're gonna love Lynn. He starts with stick figures, and all of us can do stick figures. And by the way, you got to draw it and you got to show it. And Jen's done this with us. It's a ton of fun.
Yeah, and Dr. G gives a great testimonial as well. The executive decision makers simply will not buy into our programs and projects if we don't show them visuals. So I love that.
So Lee Lambert, could you unmute yourself a second? You've been at this game for a while. Why aren't more visuals part of how people articulate their projects?
Well, for me, a good deal of my career has been involved with teaching and the educational side. But we began to use visuals like this because we found out very quickly from a platform position, I lost my students within the first half hour. And I'm teaching an 8-hour class, so it makes a hell of a long day when they're asleep and I'm trying to teach. So I've kind of grown it from that. So I'm probably obsessed with visuals. I think that anything else loses a lot of opportunity to make your points and to hit it fast and get out.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Jennifer Bridges.
Also, I want to add, Mauro has a great example question. Can prototyping be considered a kind of a visual designing?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. And yeah, we talk about that in terms of, so our process very quickly, right? So it's yeah, current state, future state. Mauro, look at this. Prototypes and pilots, launch, rollout.
Yeah.
So a lot of your projects, sorry, Jen, a lot of your projects are multi-month, multi-year. They're complex. Show me, what does that look like and what's involved? Then give me a glimpse. By the way, Jennifer's dragged me into some of these war rooms where like the entire wall used to be covered by project plans and Post-it notes everywhere. And if I'm an executive and I think I'm pretty intelligent and I walk in that room, I'm like, oh my God, what the hell am I looking at? Versus one page that says, here's where we're going. Here's how we're going to get there. Here's why you should care. Jen?
Yeah, I just want to add too, because I think it's such an important part of what we do is like what we're seeing on the screen is the end state, the iconology of the diagrams, but they start from literally like what Lynn will show us and teach us is like, it can be stick figures. He does better than stick figures, but but it's literally sketching out things. And then after it's refined and finalized, then he does this iconology in the end. But literally, I mean, stick figures can speak 1,000 words, you know.
You just like saying iconology.
I do.
That's a fancy word, iconology. I like it.
You
All
have
right,
to teach me that word.
all right, let's go. Let's go back to Mentee. Let's go back to Mentee. And I want to ask you one question. This is specific to you. This is specific to you and your world. One question. What do you believe curve benders are? What do you believe curve benders are? So just type a short answer. Let me get a glimpse of what do you think they are? Accelerators. Yes. Yes. Game changers. First adopters. Yes. That idea of paradigm shift. Yes. Think outside the box. Industry leaders. You better believe it. Boosters. People that impact change my life. Yes. Man, love this. This is awesome. Very cool. Yes. Direction changers. Yes. Problem solvers. You better believe it. These are all great. Keep jumping in. Keep jumping in. I want to see what else other people are thinking. Differentiators, yes. At their core, curve benders are some of your most strategic, most valuable relationships. So look back of where you've been. If you've been in business for more than 5 minutes, there's probably individuals in your past that have had a profound impact on you. They've shaped the manager. They've shaped the leader that you've become. You can look back at that professor that led you in this direction, or that really amazing boss or mentor or coach that demonstrated a vested interest in your success. You are the manager, you're the leader, you're the person that you are today because of them. Here's the crazy part. The next decade of your life will also be heavily impacted by potential curve benders. We believe there's so much change and disruption that's ahead in this fourth industrial revolution, in things like AI, ML, quantum computing, not just technology, but this pandemic has accelerated. There's actually a statistic that shows e-commerce, for example, was growing by 1% a year over 10 years. This past year, it grew by 10%, and it is not going to go back. So this pandemic in 1 year has accelerated a lot of change, a lot of problem stacks that were a nice to have, nice to get to. Telemedicine. Telemedicine has been around for a number of years. This past year, it took off. So curve benders are going to be those critical relationships in your journey, in your growth, that are going to have a profound impact on you as an individual, you as a manager, you as a leader. So let's talk about a couple of ideas that, again, I want to plant a seed with you. I want to show you that I believe are going to really impact your career as a project management professional. So many of you have been around these dynamic games like soccer, like hockey, like lacrosse, like football and rest of the world. And if you've ever played these games, or your kids have played, or you've been around them, you understand my comment that 90% of these games are played when you don't have the ball. And if you look at the best teams, it is the ultimate team sport, just like project management is. And if you look at the best teams, the best players are always asking, where should I be? What should I be doing? How do I put myself and my team in the best possible position to either play defense or offense? You need to start seeing the market, your company, the market, just like that pitch, just like that field. It is that dynamic. It is that fast moving. It is that you have that many options, and you've got to play with the best team you can to create opportunities to score, to win. So if you're a rock star and the team can't deliver, you're going to struggle. I'm telling you that flat out. If you've got a team that cannot deliver outcomes, you're going to struggle in that organization. If you're a rock star and a team delivers, but the company, for whatever reason, is led by a group that just cannot get their act together, you're going to struggle. And I'm not advocating for you to turn in your resignation tomorrow, but if we're talking about career accelerants, nothing replaces the value that you can bring or the perceived value that you bring than performance, execution, and results. So I don't know of an organization that can cut its way to growth. That's why I typically don't work with companies that are laying a bunch of people off, because that's not a place where people are going to be motivated and inspired to do amazing work. Doesn't mean I shy away from challenges, but I'm bringing some tough love and asking you to look in the mirror. Are you in the right job? Are you with your skills, with your knowledge, are you in the right job? Are you on the right team? Are you in the right organization? Are you in the right industry? Job, team, organization, industry. This is the time to start thinking about those things and really start to ask about your own journey from what I call now to next. So I mentioned to you that dynamic pitch. We're going to talk a lot more about these. We've identified 15 forces that are going to continue to create disruption. By the way, if you're curious about this global pandemic in the last year, it's right here, number 14 in this corner, Black Swan event. One example of 15 demographics means aging workforce. I was talking to a client who's a home builder. They cannot find enough tradespeople. They can't find enough welders. They can't find enough concrete and plumbing and, right? They can't find enough craft people. Technology. I've got a client who's an accounting firm. I just saw a demonstration of an AI, artificial intelligence engine, that scanned 10,000 sheets of paper and analyzed it in 8 seconds. If your value in the organization is to review documents, I'm trying to tell you that's going to be very short-lived, because there's all kinds of technology that's coming out that will replace that rudimentary work. I'm not trying to scare anybody other than tell you these forces are going to impact you and impact the way you work. So let's go back to Menti again real quick. Let's go back to Menti. I want to make sure we get your interactivity. Thinking about your own world, thinking about your job, thinking about your projects. What are the top 3 barriers to you thinking and leading differently? What are the top barriers to you thinking and leading differently? Is it risk avoidance? Let's not do that. Is it zero-sum thinking? Is it tradition and culture? Is it leadership? Is it internal system, structure, decision-making? Is it staffing and recruiting? Is it organizational silos, or is it success? Listen, we're doing well. Why should we do anything differently? So pick 3. And what I love about this is not some stale survey, right? It's your own colleagues. It's your own project management colleagues in this call. Is this really a surprise to anybody? Tradition and culture, right? We've always done it that way. How about organizational silos? By the way, if you talk to anybody in that other department, I'll kill you, right? I will stab you in your sleep, right? Wait, what? I thought we were working for the same company. Yet it happens, right? Internal system, structure, and decision-making. Look at that, risk avoidance. Let's not try anything new. So
I love these. I would love to know if there are any, that are not on the list. Just put those in the chat if you've got something that's not reflected here.
Right? I'm genuinely, Jen and I are genuinely curious, right? What is holding you back from thinking and leading differently? And yeah, look at that, tradition and culture. That's the way we've always done it. And I'm pretty sure Kodak and Nokia and BlackBerry and Sears, right? A lot of brands that we grew up with thought the same way. We've always done it that way. Why should we do anything differently than that Sears catalog? I had 5 different BlackBerry devices. You remember those things? What was the coolest thing? If you have one now, by the way, we'll hug, okay? I'm a hugger. If you have a BlackBerry now, we'll hug. But I had 5 different generations of those BlackBerries. What was the coolest feature of the BlackBerry device? Most people would say it was the keys, right? I love the way the keys felt. What did they do with the latest iteration of their phone? They got away with it, from the keys. They gave away their biggest differentiation. So tradition and culture and silos, and yeah, it creates this blinder zone, right? So thanks for jumping in on those. And by the way, we'll also share all this data. If it's useful to you or your projects in any way, you can say, hey, I was with a group of really cool project managers. Look at what the group thinks. All right. So again, thinking about your career, thinking about your ability to remain relevant. That's the other thing I want you to think about. And another attribute that's going to be an accelerant to your career is your ability to remain relevant. In that journey, and again, I'm asking folks, if you haven't, please mute yourself. In that journey, you're going to come across this idea of reinvention, this idea of you got to learn, you got to consistently think about, how am I learning? How am I growing? What does that growth look like? And that journey, for most people, it's a linear growth. For most people, I'm gonna share my, let's see.
Yeah.
There we go. So that linear growth, right, is A. I learn. Maybe at some point I'll apply it. I don't believe that's gonna be sufficient. I don't think that's gonna be good enough. I told you, market is moving very dynamically. So I'm talking to a lot of people about non-linear growth. What does that look like? Micro-learning. Sessions like this. I know you want 60 PDUs. I'm trying to tell you, 1 PDU, 5 PDU, 10 PDU at a time is going to give you a faster opportunity to learn something, these micro learnings, and immediately apply it to solving a problem, to solving a challenge. And what you're going through in that reinvention is called an S curve. We're going to talk a lot more about this in future sessions, but that S curve has something I call a refraction point. You basically reach a plateau. You reach a ceiling. The average arc of almost any job is about 3 to 5 years. Think about it. When you first join a company, you have no idea what you're doing. By the time you learn what to do and how to do it, you reach that arc by about 3 to 5 years. Because you know how I know? Your job is an autopilot. You can do it in your sleep, right? At that point, you basically have 3 options. You're either going to flatline, where somebody's going to have to jolt some excitement in your life because you're just showing up and just going through the routine. So I call that static kind of recalibration. Let's recalibrate you in what you're doing. But basically, you've reached the ceiling. You're going to fall off. And again, let's be honest with ourselves. When we get bored, we get distracted. When we get bored, the quality of our work, you miss more deadlines. You're not excited about showing up. You know how I know? You're hitting that Zoom button or that snooze button on your alarm clock 5, 6, 10, 12 times in the mornings. Let's call a spade a spade. You're not excited about what you're doing. Now, is every job going to be a walk in the park? Heck no. I'm a realist. There's some days that are just god-awful. But in its totality, are you excited about what you're doing? Are you passionate about what you're doing? Do you feel like you're making a difference? If not, stop kidding yourself. Because what the best scenario is, the blue, A, you need an opportunity to kind of that accelerated climb. That accelerated climb is going to come from looking at that scenario a little differently. I'm going to take you to the first physics class. I'm going to take you to your first physics class. You remember shining a light through a glass of water or that prism, right? And we all saw the rainbow for the first time. It's like, ooh, that's so cool. Remember that? Well, what you were looking at it's called the refraction point. And what happens is that light not only accelerates through that point, but it then gives you options. It gives you that range. I believe relationships, certain relationships that I call curve benders, can do the exact same thing when you reach that plateau, when you reach that arc of your job. And to get to that next reinvention, you're going to have to learn, you're going to have to think, you're going to have to do some things very differently. So in the subsequent sessions, we're going to talk about this idea of your personal market value. For 6 years, I spent it at a private equity firm. If you know what private equity is, they basically go raise a whole lot of money and they go invest in and they go buy companies. And we bought and sold 110 different companies in 6 years. So what I saw, and I had a front row seat to these companies, they would go buy another company. They would go launch a new product. They would go after a new market segment. They would open up international stores, international locations. Every one of those moves improved the value of the company. And it made me think, if somebody can improve the value of the company, what has to happen for Colleen? What has to happen for Maria? What has to happen for Jean to improve their market value? Not just how much you're paid, that's one measuring stick, but also the impact you can create. So what I did is I've come up with a series of data points. And in the session that we're going to do, we're going to talk a lot more about this. Foundational, value accelerants, growth enablers. I'm going to spend an entire hour just on this page and give you very specific things you need to think about, you need to do. And we're actually building a tool for you to measure, what is my personal market value today? What do I aspire to? What do I want it to become? And what are some of the things I should be doing? What are some of the things I should invest in? For example, let me give you one. Right in the middle of the page, I don't know if you can read it, but it's called brand. I know you've heard of a brand. Your company probably has one. Brands, you also have a personal brand. So one of the questions I'm going to ask you in that session is, what is your personal brand? And I'm going to force you to come up with three descriptors of what is it that you want to be known for? What is it that you want people to refer you as? If two people were in a room and they were talking about Joe Gonzalez, how would you want them to describe you? If somebody was talking about Mary or Andy Thomas or Angie or Tim Stokes, how do you want them to describe you? By the way, is that the way they describe you today? And how do you know? So you have to know your brand. You have to be intentional about your personal and professional brand, and you have to live that brand on a daily basis. So if Colleen says one of my brand attributes, that's what it's called, is going to be particular attention to details. Colleen, actually, can you unmute yourself and just give us one of those brand attributes? What do you want to be known for? Let's use a real example.
So for me, compassionate leadership.
Compassionate leadership. Love it. I'm a hugger. If we were together, I would hug you in a non-creepy way. Okay, just want to point that out. Compassionate leadership. If Colleen berates someone, if she rips them in front of a whole bunch of people, she doesn't look like that type. But you know what everybody's thinking? I thought she was compassionate. I thought she was a compassionate leader. That's not what a compassionate leader looks like. And what happens is you confuse people with the brand you want them. Doesn't mean Colleen can't get upset about projects or initiatives or people that just don't do their jobs. She just can't lose her temper, because that's not congruent. That's not consistent with a compassionate leader. So we're going to talk about, what is your brand? What do you want your brand to be? And that is one of the fastest ways to accelerate. That's why it's in that bucket. Your both perceived and delivered value. What brand do you bring to this team, to this organization, right? So let's go back to Menti. I'm pretty sure right about now, I have one of those very serious questions. I've got to ask you. I think it's a very serious question. I think it's a very serious question. Maybe. Yeah. Are you having fun? Because if you're not having fun, it's over between us. I'm leaving. It's over between us. Jennifer Bridges, I'm done. I'm done with your project management team. It's over if you're not having fun. So I said this before we started. Way too many meetings we all sit in on are like way too stiff. This is not going to be one of those. When you come to a Jennifer Bridges Nour session, we're not going to be stiff, right? So thank you for that voting. Thanks for doing that. All right. So let's in our last few minutes, I'm respectful of your time. Last few minutes, I want to show you. Last few minutes. When I talk about curve benders, everybody talks about, okay, how do I meet these magical, mystical people? Where are they? So there's a roadmap in there we'll talk about. I'm also going to talk about those S curves, those reinventions, getting shorter. You're going to have to do them more often. And when you daisy chain them, when you connect them to each other, you're going to anticipate where that lull is. You're going to anticipate where that inflection point, refraction point is in your career, right? So we're going to talk about in the next information session, certainly in the learning sprints, this idea that you're going to have to be, like I said, much more proactive. As I mentioned in our time together, these sessions are free. We've covered the first one. Next week, I'm going to go deep into that personal market value, the rings that I just showed you. And in the last one, we're going to spend a lot of time on your S curve. What does that look like? How do I know? How do I start to anticipate it so I don't get bored as easily? I'm hoping you'll this is of interest. This is in value. I'm hoping it would be a favor to me to pre-order this book and hopefully some good insights in there. By the way, y'all, I got to tell you now, it's blank on the inside. It comes with those crayons and you can draw on it. It's actually, there's no words. Words, who needs words? I've been talking about pictures. So it's blank inside. You get crayons, you can draw all in it. It's really a drawing, coloring book for adults. That's a market need that's not there. But when we come back in May, like I said, we're going to do a series of learning sprints. The other thing I want you to do is absolutely, let's continue the conversation. So Jen shared the link in here, but if you just go to nourgroup.com/forum, you can also get that way. Left-hand side, there's groups. Jennifer Bridges is running the biggest, I'll give her that, the biggest, coolest group in our community. There's a PDUs2Go PM Next group. Come continue the conversation. Come continue the discussion. Come ask questions. I already know this stuff. I've been thinking about these ideas for 4 years. I've interviewed over 100 executives. The opportunity for you here is to learn and take a more proactive approach in managing your career as a project management professional. So let me summarize and give you 3 things. You need to have a line of sight into key trends that are going to impact your world. You've got to make sure you remain relevant, and you've got to constantly learn and grow. If you do those 3, I've found those to be a phenomenal enabler of accelerating your career. Line of sight in what are the trends, what's happening, can I understand what's happening quickly? Remaining relevant. So if I see what's happening, how can I take initiative? How can I learn? Right? I'm taking French classes. I have no interest in leaving US to go to France, but I think another language would be really good for you or for me. I'm learning how to code. Do I want to leave my world and become a programmer? No, but I think that's something useful to learn. So what do you need to learn to remain relevant? And the last one was constantly learning, constantly growing, coming to things like this, right? So continue the conversation. I'm a big Gary Hamel fan. So let me pause for a second, let you read this quote. I cringe when people talk about annual strategic planning of some kind, annual performance reviews. Are you kidding me? I can't remember what I had for breakfast. You want me to tell you what I did last year or last month? No way, right? This pandemic, beyond its lives and the livelihoods that is impacted, it is a fantastic opportunity. It's a If you could kindly mute, if you could mute yourself, kindly, if you could mute yourself, that'd be great. So this pandemic is a great chance for you to rethink, reimagine, reinvent. And I can't think of a better opportunity to look at the world in a new way than your career. You're never too old or too young to find mentors, to get mentors, to really think about, what am I passionate about? I don't know about you, but if I love what I do, it doesn't feel like work. If I love what I do, I'm up at 5 in the morning, 5 a.m. every day, including weekends, because this doesn't feel like work to me. I love what I do. If you can't say the same thing about what you do, let's figure out how to make that change, right? So on that note, Jen, questions, comments by this fabulous community chat? I'm happy to stick around for a few more minutes. Otherwise, I'm respectful of everybody's time, and I want to make sure that
Yeah, a couple of things as we close. If you look at the right-hand column on the chat area, I've left a link there how to join our forum. It's super simple. Doesn't cost anything. It's free, but it has the event, it has the PDU instructions. David will post the images that people have commented on that are very helpful. But if you click on that and just join, you'll find, again, the PDU instructions. If you have questions, send your inquiries to us. Just email registrar@PDUs2Go.com, and that creates a ticket with our customer service. And then the last link I wanted to post there, several people have asked about the book. So that's the link to pre-order. And with the pre-order, you also have, we're going to go in depth. We're going to have an overview of these sessions in April, but in May, you're going to have access to more in-depth, 3 in-depth sessions on these where you'll get additional PDUs. So I want to thank you for being here. It's always fun, and I hope this has been value, and let us know what other questions you have.
That's it for today. Thanks, everybody. Good to see you. Come join us in the forum. Oh, Colleen is giving me a hand. Oh, and Maria, I got a thumbs up for Maria. Thank you, guys.
Awesome. Yeah, give us your reaction.
Lee Lambert, nice to see you, sir. Glad you were able to join us. Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Everybody, thank you so much.
Very cool.
Bye,
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Jean, thank you. Dr. G, thank you, guys. Good to see everybody.
Bye.
Take care, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.
Goodbye, everybody. Have a good one.